guys, what is up and welcome back to my channel. If you happen to be new here, my name is Jess. As you guys can tell from the title of today's video, we're going to be wrapping up our read of Vicious for Hype or Not. I'm actually really excited this go around because I feel like there's a lot more engagement on the group this time, as well as I can actually read off what you guys think, and I think we finally have it down to a good format when it comes to responding to how you feel about the book. Not done in like question format, but just in a overall, what did you think of this part? What did you think of this part kind of thing? So I did want to sit down, I do actually have my phone here, and just go over what your guys' thoughts were as well as what my thoughts were about the book. I'm going to start out with what I thought of it. Now, I ended up giving this book 4.5 stars, so I'm going to round it down to about 4. There were a couple of things that I really loved about this book. I really like the different powers they have. I do like that this is sort of a take on the X-Men, but a more vicious, no pun intended, version of that. I actually really like that. I like books that have characters that have a lot of powers. I also really like the characters in the book as well. I would say Sydney is definitely my favorite, as well as her power is also really cool. I think that she just has this ability that I feel like a lot of people wouldn't really know what to do with, wouldn't really know how to handle, and it is something that could get crazily out of control. And I do like that she was kind of paired with Victor, and Victor is definitely one of those characters who has accepted that he is what he is and is trying to help her in his own kind of confused, sort of lost way. And I really like that. I like their little band of friends. I also really like the relationship between Eli and Victor as well. I think that it is really well thought out at the beginning of the book, and then it obviously gets a little bit more torn towards the end of the book because of what happens in this book. But I overall really liked it. The only things I didn't really like about it is, and I guess this is more of a trigger warning for people as well, to kind of get their powers, they attempt to kill themselves, and they attempt to kill themselves pretty often and a few times, and that was really unsettling to me. I actually, after getting through that part, had to take about a 2-week break from reading this book because I did find it very triggering as somebody who has suffered from suicidal thoughts and tendencies and does suffer with self-harm. I didn't want to read that at the time, and it really kind of actually put me in a, I kind of had an episode and I needed to take a break, and it really affected my life. So be warned if you are reading this book that it does have that kind of content in it. But I did like that it was pretty vicious. I did struggle a little bit with Eli's character as well. Eli is one of those characters who believes that he's doing the greater good. Unfortunately, in this case, like, he's doing God's work, and I don't like characters like that. That's no fault of the book. However, if you like characters like that, you'll still really love this book. But that is just something that I personally struggle with. So I did have trouble with getting into Eli's character. So oftentimes when the story was being told from Eli's perspective, I disliked him so much, not because he was a poorly written character, at least in my eyes, and not because he wasn't necessarily an enjoyable character, like people will enjoy him. I just don't like the trope that Eli was, and that is why I didn't necessarily like that. But overall, I did really enjoy this book. I do like how brutal it is. I do like how honest it is. And I wouldn't say that they are necessarily villains, but I would say that they are morally gray. I couldn't say that either of them are, because Victor is doing things with what he's left with. So after he transforms, you know, he does kind of have this lack of empathy, a lack of, you know, like really understanding what other people are going through. And I think that that is what makes him morally gray. And then Eli is one of those characters who thinks that he's doing good, but he has a reason for thinking he's doing good. And I think that's why I would consider them morally gray, but would in no way, shape, or form consider them actual villains. And as somebody who really likes villains, I was really looking forward to that, which is why for this reason and other reasons, I ended up giving the book 4 stars instead of 5. But obviously, it is because this was kind of marketed in a different way for me. All right, now I'm going to kind of get into what you guys were saying in the Goodreads group, and I'm going to start with the part 1 kind of overview. Somebody said, this was my first V. Schwab book, and I was very pleasantly surprised. I went into it not knowing very much, and I liked the dynamic of 2 powerful archenemies who used to be friends and are now villains. I actually really also like that. I think a lot of people really like that. I didn't used to like the friend to, you know, enemies kind of trope, but I am learning more so now that I really do, because I feel like it adds a lot of depth to the story. I feel like it makes the characters a little bit deeper. It makes the story a little bit deeper. I actually really like that. And then she said, although in Eli's eyes, everybody's a villain but him. That's also very true. She said, I listened to the audiobook and got chills several times, which I can see that. Though I'm pretty sure reading the physical book would have made for an interesting experience as well. Do you think the vicious part of them was always in them? I feel like to be perfectly honest, I feel like everybody has the capability of being that kind of person, and when you because when they do get their powers, there's, like I said, this empathy, this understanding is kind of removed. Victor does describe it at certain points in the books where he says he knows he's supposed to care at this point. He knows he's supposed to feel something, and even Eli says this too, but there is like a block, and occasionally Victor does feel it. And I think with that removed, with our understanding and our empathy removed, I feel like everybody could essentially become this kind of person. So I really, really like that Victoria touched on that. She said, that's what I was getting from Victor. He put himself in that category, and from the way he spoke about the monster within Eli, even when they were pre-meds, it was always there for him too. I really got that. I appreciate the complexity of both of them, each for different reasons. Yes, I definitely do. I appreciate Eli for what he added to the story. I just wasn't really a big fan. She said, I also got Ronan Lynch and Joseph Kavinsky vibes. Anyone else? I read The Raven Boys with Hypernaut, funnily enough, and then immediately started The Dream Thieves, and I just couldn't shake that comparison away. I could see that. I definitely could. Carol says, I think there was some evil viciousness in them even prior to them going into this. Eli wants to tap into power by creating extraordinary people, and Victor goes along. That's very true. I didn't think about that. Eli wants to create them, and it's Eli's idea to do this. And I can kind of see the wanting to create extraordinary people, and then once Eli turns, he actually realizes for him, how impure it is. I think it was definitely there. They think that both of them are right and will not see the other side. True. They are selfish when it comes to their progress and always feel that they are in the right. I prefer Victor to Eli, but they are definitely not good people. I can definitely see that as well. It says, I do like that they're villains, but I feel like maybe Victor is just closer to being morally gray. His relationship with Sydney and Mitch shows that he can be a good person and care for others. Eli is too selfish and after his own personal wants to think about how he's going to affect others. That's true. Victor definitely has Mitch and Sydney with him, and he does help them and he does work with them. And Eli has Serena, which is Sydney's older sister, and he wants to work alone. And I don't know if that's because he thinks that he's on a mission from God and it's something that he should be doing by himself. But Victor, I definitely think, is a lot more morally gray because he does obviously try to help, and he does have the understanding that he should feel a little bit of empathy for what he's doing. And while he does torture people to get information throughout the book, I think that he is definitely, I don't know, more morally gray because you know he's trying to care about other people. Someone said, V.E. Schwab's writing is really good. I was hooked from the very first chapter, and I've got to say that this is the first book I read from her. I'm obsessed and want to read all of her books. I could see that. But she also goes on to say, I will say that some chapters brought out a loud anxiety for me to read. It's a struggle because I want to read this book in one sitting, but sometimes that's not possible. Like I said, yes, this definitely has a lot of trigger warnings for suicide and murder and such. It's been interesting to see how the relationship of the characters have developed. I'm very intrigued to get Eli's perspective because right now only Victor has the opportunity to do so. This was in the first part. Still love the characters. The story is delicious and dark and intriguing, and I want more. Someone said delicious and dark. I like that description. Sam, that bookish gamer who's the other one of the moderators for the group, says, I completely agree. Eli is definitely a villain. He has this absolutely destructive God complex. I really enjoy Victor's character because you can see his struggle with his morality. He wants to just not give a fuck, but then you can see bits of kindness towards Mitch and specifically Sydney. Schwab's inclusion of human nature is fascinating to me. I think that's what I really liked about this book. Now, I don't consider Eli a villain, but I can see why people consider him a villain, and obviously that's up to opinion on what you consider villainous or not. But I do love that V.E. Schwab does a lot of morality and human feelings in her books. I think it's amazing. Maddie said, this was such a surprise. I haven't actually loved any of Schwab's books before, so I wasn't sure if I would like this one, but this book, such complex characters, and I had to put this down at times to savor it. Victor Vale is definitely my favorite character, but all of them are so interesting to read about. Definitely true. So that is the part 1 thoughts. We're going to go over part 2 thoughts real quick, which is overall what people thought of the book. So Sam says, holy shit, okay, so this was a reread for me, and I thought that may take away from the ending. I actually had forgotten how the book ended. Wow. But anyways, how did you guys enjoy the character development? I think Sydney is such a fascinating character. I really hope we get to see more of her in Vengeful. I definitely see that. Carol says, I love the ending. I think it's a bit obvious that it's a possibility once Sydney's power is revealed early on, but it was still great. The last few sentences felt so abrupt, but in a good way. I think we'll get even more character development in the next book because I think we have a lot more delving to do into the characters. I'm going to kind of bleep out what character we're talking about because it kind of gives away the book a little bit. But going into the ending, I do think the ending was pretty predictable. Now, as it was happening, you kind of knew how the book was going to end, like the overall theme of the ending, but you didn't really know how it was going to happen. There's one point in time where Victor and Eli come to a head and they meet up, and you don't know how Victor is supposed to pull one over on Eli. You don't know how he's supposed to figure anything out because Eli is unkillable. But I really, really like how it ended. And like I said, it was very abrupt, but it was a very, very good abrupt ending. And now that the second one is already out, I don't mind that ending because I know I can just go and pick up the next one and read it. I actually received it this afternoon, so I'm really excited for that. But yes, it was very predictable, unfortunately. Maddie says that ending. I love this book so much more than I thought I would. My favorite character was definitely Victor, but most of the main characters were pretty interesting, and I'm really intrigued about the second book now. Definitely see that. And someone else says, kind of saw the ending coming. I'm gonna bleep out what she said, but overall I enjoyed the book. I did have some issues with it, but I'm definitely looking forward to the sequel. I 100% agree. I think that the ending was very predictable, but I'm still interested to see how the overall conclusion of the duology goes. I think that is what I'm really, really hyped about. Someone says, I really enjoyed the second part of the book. I was expecting a little bit more of Eli's perspective, like getting into his head the way we were with Victor. I'm very intrigued to see where the story will go now because obviously there will be revenge. I like the introduction to new characters and their powers. Overall, I approve. It is worth the hype. So that is what everybody's thinking about the book now. Do I think that Vicious is worth the hype? I absolutely do. If you like morally gray, semi-villainous characters, if you like superhero powers, if you like that teetering line between doing the right thing and kind of doing the wrong thing, especially if you like characters with God complexes, if you like broken characters who still try to connect with other characters, I think you're gonna love this book. And I wish I would not have waited so long. And I honestly, of every single book I've ever read by V.E. Schwab, I would have to say that this is a tie with This Savage Song for me. I just really loved This Savage Song, but I think that Vicious is more of an adult version of that because if I'm not mistaken, this is actually an adult book. And overall, I just really loved it. And it sounds like you guys really loved it. And I'm really excited to read Vengeful. Like I said, I just got it today and I think I'm going to go ahead and start it. But that is what you guys thought of the book. That is what I thought of the book. And thank you guys so much for reading it with us this month. So we haven't picked the book yet as of filming this for next month. So keep an eye on the Goodreads group. Voting is going to be up until the end of the month. I believe we're going to be trying to read a graphic novel. So hopefully that has already been chosen for you guys. You guys have already started reading it. But yeah, I hope you guys liked this video. And if you did, please give it a thumbs up and think about subscribing. And I will see you guys in my next one. Bye.